Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Teacher Josa, of course, your teacher for the subject Introduction to the Philosophy of the Human Person. Happy Tuesday! So let me share my screen. Okay. Yun. All right, last meeting, our topic is all about fact and opinion. We defined each term and give philosophical example. We also broaden our knowledge about it by differentiating facts and opinion, and some according to some author hindi naman sila magkasalungat, no? So actually, instead of using facts versus opinion, sinasabi ng other author na fact and opinion. All right, next. So for today's lesson, I want you to read the diagram below and answer the different questions. So, the question here sa middle, no, nakita natin, the belief, statement, or conclusion. So, the belief, statement, or conclusion. Okay? So, first things first, opposing thoughts and objection. For example, no, may isa kang paniniwala, isang statement, or isang conclusion sa isang bagay. So, here's the opposing thoughts and objections. How would you answer someone who said that statement or that belief? What might those people say? And how could someone else look at this? Why? Why do you think your way of looking at it is better? So that's the opposing thoughts and objection. Next is the origin or source. How did you come to believe that statement or that belief? And then you have the support, the reason, evidence, and assumption. How do you know? Are you assuming that? Is this a good assumptions? What evidence do you have? Why it's relevant? And how do you know your evidence is true? How are you convincing of thinking about this issue and why? So after the after looking for the origin or source and opposing thoughts and objections and looking for support, reasons, and evidence and assumptions, now last is the implication and consequences. Are you implying that if that's true, then what else must be true? How would we put that act into action? What happens when you act on that belief? No, naniwala ka na sa belief na yon or sa statement na yon or sa conclusion na yon. So I want you to answer these two questions. What are the things we need to consider in analyzing our beliefs, statement, or conclusion? My second question is, do you think these are essential for us to philosophize well? Uh-huh. Okay. So, when you hear the word, wait lang. In one of our lesson, we talk about approaches in doing philosophy, where it will help us to learn the process of doing philosophy in a systematic way. But for today, we're going to talk about an essential aspects for us to successfully apply the approaches in doing philosophy. When you hear the word philosophize or philosophizing, what comes to your mind? We don't usually hear this kind of word being used in our day-to-day life. But to give you an overview, philosophizing is to think or express oneself in a philosophical manner. So today, we will further expand our vocabulary by diving deep as to what are methods of philosophizing. So our topic for today is methods of philosophizing. All right. Our content po yun Content standard. The learner the learner demonstrate various ways of doing philosophy. We're going to evaluate opinions. For our most essential learning competency, realize the methods of philosophy leads to wisdom and truth. Our specific objectives are analyze difference, the difference, the difference or the different, the different example po yan. The different examples of deductive and inductive argument reasoning. Write examples of deductive and inductive uh, argument or reasoning. So let's start. We have actually 4 methods of philosophizing. So first is the dialectical or Socratic method. Uses a very incisive way of questioning the underlying assumptions of one's opponent. So, we call it dialectical or Socratic method. Pero mas kilala siya sa Socratic method. In dialectical or Socratic method, we base on asking or answering a question to stimulate critical thinking. So, it is based on asking or answering questions to stimulate critical thinking. Okay? So, pasimple lang natin, no? Socratic method, sinasabi, to cross-examine. So, for example, I ask you a question and then you answer. Then, I ask another question based on your answer. And after answering my second question, I ask again another questions based on your answer. So, that is Socratic method. Answer, question, then answer again. Okay, so we do Socratic method to stimulate critical thinking. Paulit-ulit na tanong. That is Socratic method. We can see this method sa mga traditional teachers, yung mga magagaling na lecturer din, pwede. No? Yung after giving you lectures, will give you questions and then you answer, then question your answer, and so on and so forth. So that is Socratic method. Don't forget that. Next is exercise or skepticism using Descartes' methods of systematic doubts, also known as skeptical or methods of doubt. Methods of doubt. Okay? Here, okay? Here, we ask question for clarification. So uses the process of doubting as form of thinking. Okay? Cognition, matter of realizing that one is actually thinking when one is actually doubting. So, first layer of Descartes methods of doubt is perceptual illusion. For example, kinuha ni ma'am itong water. So, nakita mo siya, nahawakan mo, pero gaano ka kasigurado na totoong water siya? So, that is perceptual illusion. Never trust what you perceive. Okay? According yan kay Descartes. Kasi pwedeng hindi totoo or pwedeng illusion lang yung water. So, anong ibig sabihin nun? When you see something, when you hear something, when you receive something, yung mga informations or news, bago maniwala, no, mag-doubt ka muna. So, that's the first process. We doubt, or doubt is a form of thinking. Sa mga nakaraang lecture ko, I said that doubt is the first layer stage of actually doing philosophy. Okay? Next is second, the dream problem. Descartes called it fabrication of own physical world. Sabi niya, kung nanaginip ako and hindi yun totoo, paano pagising ko and panaginip lang din yun. Grabe, no? So, sinasabi ni Descartes, we need to think of what we are thinking if it's reality or just an illusion or problematic na problema. That's why here in skeptical method or methods of doubt, we talk back and forth, we agree to disagree paulit-ulit, no? For example, I ask you a question and then you answer, you might agree or disagree sa akin. So after agreeing and disagreeing, ikaw naman yung magtatanong sa akin. Okay? And after asking me, ako din magda-doubt and then I'll ask you. So it's talking back and forth and agreeing and disagreeing until makuha natin yung pinaka ah, dulo ng ating argument or pinag-uusapan natin. Okay? Because in skeptical Descartes or methods of systematic doubt, yon, mahal na pakahalaga na nag-agree to disagree tayo. Okay? Gets natin yung difference, ha? Next is third, wala sa akin PowerPoint, but the third is the scientific. So, scientific, as a method of philosophizing, we produce knowledge based on empirical data. And when we say empirical, we base truth or our knowledge based on experiment, observation, testing, and theory building or assessment. Okay? So that is scientific method. Okay? Kaya may mga experiments tayo in science. Okay? Third is historical. Historical as method of philosophizing is gathering actually primary sources. Primary sources means yung pinaka-old pa na references at here in historical method, hindi mahalaga yung logic. Because according to historical, totoo ang isang bagay kung ito ay nasa past references. Mas mapagtibay at mapapatunayang totoo yung current na information through primary sources. Okay? So, we have 4 methods of philosophizing. I hope yung mga simple or real life na example na binibigay ko ay nakatulong para mas naging malinaw at mabilis intindihin. No? Kasi in other references, ayun, medyo nakakahilo siya. Pwede nyo naman siyang basahin actually. Alright. So, existential realization, the thinking could not exist in vacuum. Additional lang naman yan kay Descartes. Alright, so this method, yung 4 na sinabi ko, methods are what typically used in philosophizing an argument. So when we say argument, to make clear or to prove. Next, it's a group of prepositions, one of which is claimed to follow from the evidence supplied by others. So key term natin is a group of prepositions and claim to follow. What? From evidence. Next, the goal is not to vanquish an opponent, but to attain clarity regarding an idea or belief. So let me repeat it. The goal is not to vanquish an opponent, but we have this argument because we want to attain clarity regarding idea or belief. Okay? Sige. Bad connotations kasi, no? Kapag sabing, nakikipagtalo ka naman, argument na naman, no? Akala nakikipag-away, no? Pero in an argument, in philosophy, we want to clarify things. That's why we argue. Okay? So, we have deductive argument. So, deductive argument, one argues for truth of a conclusion by deducting a statement. Key term natin, deducting a statement from a number of others axioms. When we say axioms, statements that are true by definition or obviously true. So they need not to prove at all. Then new statements are deduced or inferred by means of number or established rules of inference. Ito yung kilala natin, deductive argument yung kilala natin na a statement cannot be true and false at the same time. O if either A or B, but not A, then B. So, clear example ito. Another definition. Progression from one true statement to another. The second statement is established as true. Mamaya, may example tayo, don't worry. Sometimes defined as argument whose final statement or conclusion is granted to be true. Tandaan niyo po yan. By the truth of previous statement or premise. Sinabi ko sa naunang statement, so I think the conclusion ay totoo. So, sometimes defined as argument whose final statement is conclusion. Yan, binulit lang na ma'am. So, here's the framework. So, from general ideas, nagkakaroon tayo ng broad ideas, and then we conclude. Okay, here's the example. All philosophers are wise. Socrates is a philosopher. Therefore, Socrates is wise. Gets? So, nagsisimula sa generic or general ideas. Here's the broad idea. And then, here's the conclusion. So, all philosophers are wise. Since Socrates is a philosopher, well, therefore, Socrates is wise. Can you give me one example of deductive argument? Okay. Sige, isip. All right. Thank you for that example. Another example, all P's are Q's. That's the general idea. S is P, therefore S is a Q. Gets? So all P's are Q, S is a P, therefore S is a Q. Gets? All right. Give me second example. Okay. Check. Next, all cows are purple. Socrates is a cow. Therefore, Socrates is purple. Okay? Pero, sa tingin nyo ba, si Socrates is a cow? No? Of course not. No? Sinasabi lang dito na in deductive way, nagsisimula sa general idea, then the broad idea, and then conclusion. That's why we have two types of deductive reasoning. We have the sound argument. When we say sound argument, argument is both valid and true. Okay? When an argument is both valid and true. Okay? Gets? So, yung last example natin, this is, ayan, unsound. When we say unsound argument, deductive argument, if one or more of its premises are false or if it's invalid. Okay? Gets? Gets. Alright. So, pwedeng okay yung format niya. Yan nagsisimula sa general, then another, and then conclusion. Pero hindi ibig sabihin nun na sound deductive reasoning na siya. Gets? Alright. Next, inductive argument. When we say inductive argument, alright, so mostly consists of generalization of most familiar form of induction. They are not evaluated as valid or invalid. It does not guarantee the truth of their conclusion, even if all the premises are agreed to be true. It can be strong or weak depending on the weight of evidence for the conclusion, the quality of the sample, and the plausibility of the generalization. So, again, it does not Here in inductive argument, it does not guarantee the truth. Even all the premises are agreed to be true. Generalization is the most familiar form of induction. Mamaya may example, don't worry. Can be strong or weak depending on the weight of evidence. Actually, we are looking for what we call substantial evidence. Okay? Are not evaluated as valid or invalid. So, nakita nyo kanina, for the deductive reasoning, yan. For the deductive reasoning, deductive po ito wag malilito. So, when we say deductive, nagsisimula sa general ideas, broad, and then conclusion. While here in inductive reasoning, we start saan? Specific observation and then broad. Gets? So, deductive, general muna, then specific. Inductive, specific observation, then your broad conclusion. That's why this is known for generalization. So, here's the example. The pipe tobacco is the same kind he uses, and the footprints match his shoes. He has seen in neighborhood only an hour before the crime, and he was heard to say, "I'm going to even with her if it's the last thing I do." The best explanation of the evidence of this case seems the conclusion that he is guilty. So from very specific scenario or observation, here's the conclusion. Okay? So we have two types of, wait lang, no? So, inductive and deductive both have certain level of validity in their statement, and it will be boiled down on their reasoning. So, we have two types of reasoning, deductive and inductive reasoning. It refers to process by which someone creates a conclusion as well as how they believe their conclusion to be true. Okay? Kanina, deductive and inductive argument. So this time, deductive and inductive reasoning. All right. So here's the explanation. So for the deductive reasoning, again, nag-start siya lagi. Okay? So, conforms with the rules of logic. It is expository. Why? Because we separate given concept into more clear and articulate arrangement. Information is already contained in the premise that must produce an increase in the scope of knowledge. Kanina, di ba, sa example natin na all blank is blank, blank is blank, therefore blank is blank. Okay? So, next, for the correctness necessary, it's impossible for the conclusion of a valid argument to be other than it is, because validity is independent of matters of empirical facts. For certainty, kasiguraduhan, absolutely certainty. Because conclusion is valid if it's conformed to logical form. When we say logical form, all blank is blank, therefore blank is blank. So logical form cannot change, therefore the certainty is unconditional. Gets? Okay. Next, for the inductive reasoning, the system is very open. Kanina for the deductive clause, no? Conforms to empirical facts. Okay, meaning evidences, observations, experimentations, and etc. So this is synthetic productive because it amplifies content to given concepts and experiences. Information contained in the premises produce increase in the scope of knowledge. So we start from a specific scenario and then we conclude. That's the method. It's contingent. So when we say contingent, it's neither necessarily true nor false. So possible for the conclusion of strong argument to be other than it is truth of conclusion is dependent of matters of empirical facts. Napakahalaga, no? For certainty, probable certainty, probable lang, no? Statistically probability certain, since it's always a question of conclusion, to conclusion confirming to facts. Okay? So, yung conclusion ay laging nagbe-base sa data na meron ka for inductive reasoning. I hope ay nakukuha nyo. Alright, so exercise. Write D if the statement given is an example of deductive argument and reasoning, and letter I if it's inductive. So all muscles out of living tissue, all humans have muscle, therefore all humans are made out of living tissue. So if we're going to assess this, nag-start siya saan? General idea na all muscles are made out of living tissue. Lahat ng humans ay may muscle. Therefore, lahat ng humans ay made up of living tissue. So this is what? Deductive. Okay? Next. All musical instruments make sounds. Airplanes make sounds. Therefore, airplanes are musical instrument. So, nag-start siya saan? General. Next. And then, meron siyang conclusion. So, this is deductive. Sound or unsound deductive argument. Diba? So, since airplanes are not musical instrument, deductive siya, oo, pero siya ay unsound. Okay, unsound deductive argument and reasoning. Gets? All right, next. The cost of college has been increasing over the past several years. Therefore, higher taxes on businesses are probably the best way to help the poor. Okay? So, ito, nakita natin, nag-start siya saan? A specific scenario. And nagkaroon siya ng conclusion based dun sa scenario na yon, sa specific scenario na yon. So, this is an example of inductive. Okay? Huwag malilito po ah. Next, number 3. All women are mortal. Mariana is a woman. Therefore, Mariana is mortal. So, nag-start siya saan? Oh, all, general. And then, meron siyang conclusion na si Mariana is mortal. Whether it's sound or unsound, yun yung next na kailangan mong sagutin. Kung unsound o sound ba siya na deductive argument. Next is, the past 5 Marvel movies have been incredibly successful. Therefore, the next Marvel movie would probably be successful. So, we start from specific scenario and then we conclude. So, this is inductive. Next. Every math quizzes has been easy. Therefore, periodic test will be easy. So, nag-start siya saan? Sa bawat isang math quiz ay madali. So, baka naman daw, na ang periodic test will be easy. Okay? So, that is what? Louder. All right, inductive. Next. All right, so, A is B, C is A. Therefore, what? B is C. So, saan ginagamit yung very traditional na example na to? Very known na to? Deductive. Okay? Next. Ma'am Josa used video lessons in teaching philosophy. Therefore, she will use video lessons tomorrow. No? So, the correct answer is what? Inductive. Specific. Okay, next. All swam are birds. All birds are creatures that hatch eggs. Therefore, all swan hatch from eggs. So again, start from all. And then we conclude. So we call it what? Deductive. Okay. Next. All art is an imitation of nature. Music is an act. Art siguro to art. Therefore, music is an imitation of nature. So, all is art, music is art, therefore, music. So it is deductive. Yay! We're done. 'Di ba? Mukhang mahirap pero kaya naman nating padaliin. Okay, next. So I want you to give 5 examples of deductive and 5 examples of inductive reasoning. For the last part, I want you to write one concept and application of this concept. One lang to, no? Sorry, wala yung S. One concept discussed in the class. So how are you going to apply this specific concept? For additional activity, I want you to sorry, yan palatandaan ng pagod na yan, kaya ganyan. So I want you to research the different type of fallacies. Fallacies. And give one example of each type. Okay, different type of fallacies. And give one example of each type. Okay? So I think that's the end of our lesson. Thank you so much, class, for listening, for all your appreciation, for your love, understanding, and for, being open-minded every time na nakakommit ako ng mistake. If may kulang, you add references. You are very humble, and thank you for that. Okay? Super duper appreciated, actually. No? Bye! Don't forget to like and subscribe.